There is a thief that enters your home every night. It doesn't steal your money or your possessions. It steals something far more valuable: your time, your peace of mind, and your perception of reality. And the most disturbing part? You are the one who lets it in. It starts with a simple impulse, a moment of boredom, an unanswered question. You pick up this small, glowing rectangle, and you fall in. An hour passes, then two. You've journeyed through a landscape of digital ghosts, political outrage, distant tragedies, arguments between strangers, curated images of lives you'll never live. You feel a growing knot of anxiety in your stomach, a sense of dread. And yet, your thumb keeps moving. Up, up, up. A relentless, hypnotic gesture. This ritual has a name, but the name is a lie. It's called doom scrolling, which makes it sound harmless, almost cartoonish, but it is not. It is a neurological contract you sign with an algorithm, a contract that allows it to hijack your brain's most ancient survival mechanisms, the same ones designed to protect you from predators in the wild, and turn them against you. What if I told you that this habit is a carefully engineered feedback loop designed by some of the smartest minds of our generation to mine your attention for profit? That it is actively rewiring your neural pathways, damaging your dopamine reward system, and making you physiologically addicted to anxiety? In this video, we are not just going to talk about a bad habit. We are going on a journey into the architecture of your own mind. We will expose the hidden war being waged for your focus. You will learn the science behind why it feels impossible to look away. And most importantly, you will be given the strategic weapons to sever this contract, reclaim your mental sovereignty, and break free from the abyss. So, take a deep breath. What you are about to learn might disturb you, but it will also set you free. To understand why you're trapped, we need to travel back in time. Not a few years, but 200,000 years. The brain you own today is functionally the same as your hunter-gatherer ancestors, and that brain's number one principle was simple. Survival depends on an obsessive vigilance for threats. This is known as the negativity bias. Imagine two of our ancestors, Thag and Oog. Thag is an optimist. He spends his days admiring sunsets and looking for the sweetest berries. Oog, on the other hand, is a pessimist. He's constantly on edge, glancing at shadows, listening to every snapped twig. One day, Thag is so focused on a mango tree that he fails to notice the saber-toothed tiger slinking through the grass. End of Thag's lineage. Oog, however, hearing a strange sound, assumes the worst and climbs a tree. He was wrong 9 times out of 10. It was just the wind. But the 10th time, he was right. Oog's lineage survived. We are the descendants of Oog. We have inherited the brains that assume the worst as a default defense mechanism. Your brain, therefore, is not a neutral observer of reality. It is a highly biased threat detection agent. The amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, is always on guard. It constantly scans your environment for anything that might go wrong, using a simple shortcut. Anything new, unexpected, or negative gets top priority for your attention. But here's a fascinating curiosity. Eye-tracking studies show that when presented with a mix of positive, negative, and neutral images, people's eyes fixate first, and for the longest duration, on the negative ones. It's a reflex. You don't choose to do it. Your brain does it for you. Doom scrolling is, in its essence, the chronic activation of this ancient surveillance software. The problem is, this system was designed for a world of scarce and immediate threats, where threat detection was quickly followed by threat resolution, fight, flight, or hide. Today, we live in a world of infinite and abstract threats. Your amygdala doesn't distinguish between the threat of a predator and an alarming headline about an economic crisis, a new disease, or a political conflict on the other side of the world. Both are processed as survival information that demands your immediate attention. You are essentially hunting for digital tigers. But here's the cruel twist. They are infinite and they never stop coming. Your brain gets stuck in the detection phase, never reaching resolution, creating an anxiety loop that never closes. We know why our brain is drawn to danger, but how did tech companies turn this ancient instinct into a multi-billion-dollar addiction? That's where a tiny molecule named dopamine enters the story, and the manipulation becomes far more sophisticated, turning your survival mechanism into a profit engine for others. But here's the curiosity that connects our evolutionary past directly to the design of the apps on your phone. Software engineers and product designers aren't just coders. They are, in a sense, applied behavioral psychologists. They study the negativity bias with scientific rigor. They know, through countless A/B tests and data analytics, that a headline framed with a tone of urgency or fear generates exponentially more clicks than a neutral or positive one. What feels like a source of anxiety to you is a successful engagement metric to their business model. They didn't create your negativity bias, but they have built a multi-billion-dollar empire on its foundation, creating a digital ecosystem where the most alarming and polarizing content is rewarded with the most visibility. Therefore, what you experience as an overwhelming newsfeed is not an accidental reflection of the state of the world. It is the deliberate result of a system designed to exploit your innate fear in exchange for your attention. If the amygdala pulls you into the feed, dopamine is what keeps you chained to it. Most people misunderstand dopamine. Self-help influencers call it the pleasure molecule, but that's a dangerous oversimplification. Neuroscientists like Kent Berridge have made a crucial distinction. There are two separate systems in your brain. The liking system, which involves endogenous opioids and gives you the feeling of pleasure and satisfaction. And the wanting system, which is governed by dopamine and gives you the feeling of desire, motivation, and seeking. Addiction doesn't live in the liking system. It lives in the wanting system. You can desperately want something you no longer even like. Dopamine, therefore, is the molecule of anticipation, and it has a very specific preference. It loves unpredictability. This is called intermittent variable reward. But let's go deeper. There are two types of dopamine release, tonic and phasic. Tonic release is your baseline level, your general mood and motivation. Phasic release are the sharp, short-lived spikes that occur in response to something unexpected and potentially rewarding. Social media algorithms are designed to ruthlessly exploit your phasic spikes. Your newsfeed is the most sophisticated slot machine ever created. Every flick of your thumb is a pull of the lever. Will the next post be a boring picture? No phasic spike. Or will it be a shocking news story, a viral video, a juicy piece of gossip? Massive phasic spike. It's this variable reward schedule that maximizes phasic dopamine spikes and creates compulsive behavior. You keep scrolling not because of what you're seeing, but because of the uncertain promise of what you might see next. Your wanting system is on fire, while your liking system remains largely unfulfilled. An even darker curiosity is that dopamine isn't just linked to seeking pleasure. It is fundamentally linked to information seeking. Animals in labs will prefer to press a lever that gives them a cue about a future reward over a lever that just gives them the reward itself. We are addicted to information, even if that information is useless or negative. Knowing, even if it's bad, feels better to the brain than uncertainty. The algorithm knows this. It doesn't need to give you good content. It just needs to give you new and unpredictable content. The genius of the design is this. Doomscrolling combines the amygdala's threat-seeking with the dopamine system's reward-seeking. It's a perfect neurological storm. The amygdala says, "Keep looking for danger to survive," and the dopamine system replies, "Keep looking. The next piece of info might be the most important one yet." It's a trap that uses your own survival systems against you, turning the search for safety into an endless source of anxiety. You're not scrolling to feel good. You're scrolling to momentarily relieve the anxiety of not knowing what's next. But that relief is fleeting, and the cycle repeats. But let's go even deeper, because dopamine's true nature is even more treacherous. The distinction that neuroscientists like Kent Berridge have made between the liking and wanting systems in the brain is crucial here. Liking is the actual sensation of pleasure you get from a reward, mediated by opioids in the brain. Wanting, on the other hand, is the desire, the seeking, the motivation to get the reward, and that is pure dopamine. Addiction doesn't reside in the liking system. In fact, over time, how much you actually like the activity can even dramatically decrease. Addiction lives entirely in the wanting system, which becomes hypersensitive and dysregulated. This is precisely why you can find yourself scrolling for hours, feeling worse and worse, more anxious and empty. Your liking system is offline. Yet the urge to keep scrolling, your wanting system, feels unbearable and outside of your control. You are, neurologically, wanting something you no longer even like. This is the definition of an insatiable craving, and it is the exact engine behind your compulsion. So far, we've talked about the mechanisms that hook you. Now, let's talk about the price your body pays. Every time your amygdala identifies a threat, it triggers the release of stress hormones, primarily adrenaline and cortisol. In a real survival scenario, this is useful. But when the threat is an infinite feed, you enter a chronic, low-grade fight-or-flight state. Your body is continuously bathed in cortisol. Chronic cortisol is poison. It was designed to be a fire alarm, not the constant background noise of your life. Elevated cortisol over time has devastating effects. Beyond suppressing your immune system and interfering with your digestion, cortisol is particularly toxic to your brain. Studies show that chronic stress can literally shrink the hippocampus, inhibiting neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons. This is why, after long periods of stress and doom scrolling, your memory seems to fail. At the same time, cortisol weakens the connections in your prefrontal cortex. Your ability to make rational decisions and resist impulses diminishes. In other words, the very stress generated by doom scrolling makes you worse at resisting the urge to doom scroll. And then there's sleep. Cortisol and melatonin, the sleep hormone, have an inverse relationship. As one goes up, the other goes down. By exposing yourself to stressful content and the blue light from your screen before bed, you are artificially suppressing your melatonin production and keeping your cortisol levels high. This doesn't just make it harder to fall asleep. It destroys the architecture of your sleep. You spend less time in deep sleep, crucial for physical restoration, and REM sleep, crucial for memory consolidation and emotional processing. You wake up feeling physically tired and emotionally fragile, making you even more susceptible to anxiety and the urge to scroll the next day. It's a self-perpetuating cycle that robs you of your nightly recovery. Think about it. You are sitting comfortably on your couch, in complete physical safety, yet your body is behaving as if it's being hunted. This dissonance between your physical reality and your digitally induced psychological reality is one of the most insidious sources of stress in the 21st century. There is no tiger to fight, no predator to flee. So all of this survival energy has nowhere to go. It just festers, turning into chronic anxiety and illness. To truly visualize what chronic cortisol does, imagine your stress system is like your body's fire alarm. It's a brilliant system designed to save your life. When there's smoke, it goes off and you act. But doom scrolling turns this system into a nightmare. It's as if someone installed an overly sensitive smoke detector that triggers not just for fire, but for shower steam, for a piece of burnt toast, and even for dust in the air. And worse, the reset button is broken. The alarm blares constantly. At first, you're on high alert. Over time, you become exhausted, unable to distinguish a real alarm from a false one. This is exactly what's happening to your body. It remains in a chronic state of alert, and the cost of keeping that alarm blaring nonstop is what scientists call allostatic load. It is the wear and tear on your body and brain that accumulates as you are exposed to repeated chronic stress. It's not just feeling stressed. It's measurable physiological damage, a debt your body incurs that will eventually need to be paid in the form of health problems. Your attention is the most precious mental resource you own, and it is under an unprecedented assault. The feed environment trains your brain for shallow, rapidly switching attention. Each time you jump from one topic to another, your brain pays a price, known as a context-switching cost. But it's worse than that. Neuroscientists talk about attention residue. When you switch from task A to task B, a part of your attention remains stuck on task A. Doom scrolling is an industrial generator of attention residue. After a session, your mind is fragmented, with bits of your attention scattered across dozens of micro-topics. This is why you feel mentally foggy and exhausted. The capacity for deep focus atrophies. This is why reading a book feels so difficult. Your brain, conditioned by the feed, craves the next novelty. The silence and singularity of deep focus become uncomfortable. Furthermore, doom scrolling exploits emotional contagion. Emotions are literally contagious, especially online. When you see a post from someone expressing anger or panic, mirror neurons in your brain simulate that emotion within you. Curiously, research shows that negative emotions like anger and fear are more viral online than positive ones. The algorithm knows this. It promotes content that generates strong emotional reactions, especially outrage, because it drives the most engagement. You are exposed to a disproportionate stream of negativity, which creates the Mean world syndrome. The algorithm doesn't show you the world as it is. It shows you a caricature of the world at its worst, because that maximizes profit. And slowly, that caricature becomes your reality. You feel helpless, anxious, and the instinctive solution is to seek more information, closing the loop. Think of your attention as a perfectly smooth mirror, reflecting the world with clarity. Each notification, each scroll, each abrupt context switch is like a small stone thrown at that mirror. At first, it's just a few cracks, but over time, the mirror shatters into 1,000 pieces. You can still see reflections, but they are fragmented, distorted, disconnected. This is why you feel mentally foggy and exhausted. Your brain is desperately trying to piece together a coherent image from a million shards of information. But here is the most shocking curiosity, one that is at the forefront of research. The neurology of chronic doomscrolling has startling parallels with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The state of constant hypervigilance, the heightened emotional reactivity, and the sense that the world is a dangerous place are hallmarks of both. Your nervous system isn't just stressed. It's learning to operate in trauma mode, even in the absence of a traditional, singular traumatic event. You are inadvertently training your brain to have the same response as a soldier in a combat zone. But the battlefield is your newsfeed. We've journeyed to the bottom of the abyss. Now, let's build the ladder out. The solution isn't willpower, it's strategy. Let's break down our escape plan into 3 layers: environmental design, behavioral protocols, and mental reprogramming. Layer 1, environmental design. The grayscale protocol. The neuroscience behind it. Color increases the salience of a stimulus. Red notifications in particular hijack your attention by mimicking nature's alert signals. Removing color dramatically reduces the app's pull. The app graveyard protocol. The neuroscience behind it. This introduces friction and exploits the law of least effort. Your brain is lazy. By making the bad habit harder, you give your rational prefrontal cortex time to veto the impulse. The zero notification protocol, the neuroscience behind it. Each notification forces a context switch, depleting your mental resources. Disabling them protects your focus and puts you in control. Layer 2, behavioral protocols. The information fasting protocol, the neuroscience behind it. Upon waking, your brain is in a highly suggestible state. Flooding it with cortisol sets an anxious tone for the day. Before bed, blue light and stress suppress melatonin, wrecking your sleep quality. The scheduled news diet protocol, the neuroscience behind it. This turns a compulsive, unpredictable behavior, which maximizes phasic dopamine, into a predictable, controlled one, which calms the dopamine system and reduces craving. The replace, don't annul protocol, the neuroscience behind it. The brain doesn't handle vacuums well. By replacing the bad habit, you are not just resisting an old neural pathway, you are actively building and strengthening a new one. Layer 3, mental reprogramming. The mindful consumption practice, the neuroscience behind it. This mindfulness practice activates the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with self-awareness and emotional regulation. It pulls you out of autopilot and puts your rational self back in charge. The joy of missing out, JOMO adoption, the neuroscience behind it. This is an application of the Stoic dichotomy of control. By focusing your mental energy only on what you can control, you reduce the cognitive overload and anxiety generated by trying to monitor an uncontrollable universe of information. Selective ignorance is a superpower in the 21st century. Think of yourself not as a victim, but as an architect. Tech companies have designed an environment to manipulate your behavior, but nothing is stopping you from redesigning that environment in your favor. You have the power to build walls, create friction, and engineer pathways that lead to healthier outcomes. Willpower is a finite resource that depletes, but good design works passively, 24/7, to protect you. This is where you stop being the rat in the maze and become the maze designer. Let's give this philosophy a name: intentional choice architecture. It's not about rejecting technology, but about using it on your own terms, turning your smartphone from an addictive slot machine into a deliberate utilitarian tool. Every protocol we've discussed is not a restriction. It's an act of intelligent design, an assertion of your sovereignty over your own mental space. You are, essentially, reverse engineering the addiction. We began this journey talking about a neurological contract you unknowingly signed, but the knowledge you've gained today is your termination clause. You see the trap now. You see the wires that manipulate you, and what can be seen can be cut. The battle for your focus is the defining battle of our era. Where you choose to place your attention determines the quality of your life. Every moment you reclaim from the digital abyss is a moment you can invest in the real, imperfect, but tangible world. Freedom in the modern world is not the absence of external constraints. It is the presence of internal control. It is the ability to choose deliberately where your consciousness will go. The thief no longer needs to enter your home. You can lock the door. The contract is void. It's time to start writing a new one. A contract with yourself. A contract to protect your most sacred resource. A contract to live in the real world. Remember our initial analogy. Your attention is a flashlight in the wilderness of your mind. The strategies we've discussed are not about throwing the flashlight away. They are about relearning how to hold it firmly, to point it deliberately where you want to look. It's about becoming the master of your own light. The battle against doomscrolling is not won with a single heroic act, but with a series of small, conscious choices, repeated day after day, until they become your new default. Every time you choose a book over the feed, a conversation over a notification, a moment of silence over digital noise, you are not just resisting a bad habit. You are actively healing your brain, rebuilding your neural pathways for focus, calm, and genuine connection. You are reminding yourself that the most important reality is not the one streamed through a screen, but the one lived through your own senses. If this journey into your mind resonated with you, and if you are ready to continue forging the tools to navigate this complex world, subscribe to Psykora. We are just beginning to map the territory. And for our first act of conscious consumption together, leave a comment below answering this question. Which protocol from this list will you try to implement first? Sharing your commitment is the first step to making it real. Thank you for your attention. Use it wisely.